Hi guys, welcome to Sailing Coach, brand new channel on YouTube. Been doing this coaching now for about 10 to 12 years, something of that order. It's about time I put out a video. There's people that wanting to get into the sport and really don't know what to do or where to go. So what we're going to do is go right back to basics and try and get some of you guys out and fishing and see what we can do. Basically, we're down here on the beach in Hastings today. You can probably see I've got a rod out already, just to see if we can get anything. It's a really calm day, a little bit of a breeze coming off the sea, but nothing to worry about at all. Personally, I like it a little bit rougher than that, but we'll do what we've got. So hopefully we're going to target a few flatfish today. Some of the terms that we're going to use as we go through, I will try and explain either today or in later videos. This will be fairly short. This is literally how you put a rod together and get casted and then take it apart at the end of the day. So what I've got, this is actually a 3-piece rod, this particular one. So when we're putting it together, first thing we're going to do is actually clean the end. Just make sure there's no little bits of grit and sand in it, because believe me, you get any of that in the little gaps at the top end. It's a male and a female sort of ferrule. If you get any bits of rubbish in there, it will help to stop it from coming apart at the end of the day. It jams. And one of the key things is to try and stop anybody from getting these stuck together. When you push them in, you do want that there. It's called an expansion gap, and over a long time that will obviously wear, because there's two parts rubbing together, and that will go further and further in, but we are talking about a very long time. So when you put them together, just can you twist it, can you just make sure it's not stuck, can you get it together at the end of get it apart at the end of the day. Now this one being 3-piece, we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're just going to clean the end, and we'll do the same with the other side. Now this one, you can see it's got the real, it's what we call the real seat. Now the eyes, or the rings on the rod, need to be in line with that real seat. So we've got everything in a nice straight line. Hopefully you can see that's a reasonably straight line up there, guys. So the next thing we're going to do is pick up a reel. This is quite a big reel, chunky. It should cast reasonably well. This is, relatively speaking, quite a cheap one as well. What we do is show you how to put this on, how we can put the rest of the gear on and get it cast into the water. In a future episode we'll actually talk about the different sorts of reels and the best way to use them. So this one, hopefully you can see that, it's a little foot, it slides up into that little gap there. I'm undoing that so it will go in, and then by tightening up that screw, hopefully you can see the collar moving up onto the foot of the reel. Don't over tighten them, same thing applies, you need to get it apart at the end of the day. Just make sure it's locked, just give it a quick wiggle, it's not going to move anywhere, that's how you want it. Now the reel itself, you may just spot, because it's nice and bright, 2 different types of line on there. You've got the bright yellow and you've got some blue tucked in there as well. The reason for that is the bright yellow is a lot stronger. We actually call it a shock leader, and it's there for a very good reason, and that reason is to stop the lead from snapping off when you cast it out. So it's around about twice the length of the rod, is probably enough. Got a sneaky feeling this one may be quite a bit longer. So what I'm doing, that little nut on the top there actually releases, gives tension to that spool, so the more you tighten it up, the tighter that gets, it locks. Get the line out, nice and easy, I'm undoing it, and then I can literally just, you can hear it and see that going round. Just going to pull the line off, and we're going to feed it through the rod rings, which are, as we mentioned, in a nice straight line. Now it almost goes without saying, but I'll do it anyway. Don't get distracted and go over the top of the rod. Don't get it. You need to go in a nice straight line. You need to make sure all the rings, and make sure you've got the line through all the rings as well. A number of times, and I've done it myself, failed to get it through all the rings because you get distracted by something else. Last little bit, that little clip on the end. It's called a quick link. This or something similar makes your life a lot easier when you're doing this game, because You can literally pick up the end tackle, which is, we call it a rig, that's the bit with all the hooks on it and the weights. You literally clip it on and away you go. So let's have a look at one of those. Let's just clip that onto there a moment. You see, just useful, just clip it on there so it doesn't blow around. It's nice, there's no wind today, but these things will blow around if you're not careful. Just checking the rod, see if there's any bites. This is what's called either a rig or a trace. Seem to have two names for the same piece of tackle for some strange reason. As you can see, I keep mine on a little foam donut. It keeps them from tangling up, makes it really easy to actually use. Now I make my own, but tackle shops are pretty similar in the actual, what you'll find on them. Piece of hardware, there's a little swivel at that end, and at the other end, on these, you've got another one of these lovely little quick links. And that's where the lead weight's going to go. So the swivel, we're going to get our little get our clip from on the reel line. I've managed to snag the hook on something, so bear with me a second. So that literally clips on there, nice and easy. With the one at the bottom, we're going to clip a lead weight to it. Nice and easy again. Now these lead weights, we will talk about them and the design and what they're all about, but you'll see they've got these spikes running. Now the spikes are there to act as an anchor. So when you cast out into a tide, they will actually hold the bottom for you. The beauty of these is when that sinks into the sand and you want to pull it back again, these will ping out and it makes your life a lot easier getting your lead with that big fish back without having to drag these all the way through the sand, which is what you used to do when I was a kid. The other beauty of these is because they're stainless steel, you can tweak them a little bit to make them either tighter or looser depending on how the tide's running. So it does make a bit of a difference, guys. So here we go then. We've now put together a rod. We've got a reel on it. We've clipped the trace onto it with a lead weight on it. What we're going to do is get it out into the water. We're going to have a little cast. So bear with me and we'll get that going as well. It's this piece. Now this whole mechanism here is called a bail arm. What that does is actually release the line from the reel. And it's that position, obviously you can see what happens, it's turning around, it brings the line in, nice and straightforward. So to cast, we're going to release it, so all the tension from the lead weight is on my finger, and the key to this whole casting lark is actually releasing it at the right time, which is essentially as it's coming past my right ear, there or thereabouts. So what we can do is just get a nice little, what's called an overhead thump cast going out, nice and gentle, just so you get the idea of it. There we go, guys, that's getting out into the water and hopefully see if we can pick up some fish as the afternoon goes on. So we'll get back to you as soon as we can with any updates. Hi guys, welcome back. I thought what we'll do while we're waiting for some bites, I'm keeping an eye on the rod over the side there. While we're waiting for bites, let's just have a quick run through as to what you might need if you're going out fishing for the first time, the sort of thing you might want to gather together. Hopefully, on the rocks here you can see the trace that we talked about just now. I'll come back to that one in a moment. Basically, a knife always gets you out of some tricky situations and good for sorting out the fish as well if you want to take any home to feed. Scissors are really good for cutting lines and various other things as well. I can use a pair of pliers. I often use these to help get hooks out of fish at times, especially if they're deep hooked. So they're a really useful tool to have. But let's just have a look in depth a little bit more at one of these rigs. Now these are all available, although I did mention I make my own, these are all available in tackle shops, especially the ones down at the coast. They're going to deal more with sea fishing than the inland ones. This one, you can see it's about 2 foot long. It's called a 2-hook flapper. You can see hopefully the 2 hooks there held in place by the orange beads. I'm going to just focus in on one of those for a moment. What it is just a couple of little metal clips, metal circles holding the beads in place, a swivel between them. And the swivel's there because a lot of fish, when you ring them in, will spin in the water, and it stops it from crimping up your line and making a mess of it. The hooks, we're using quite small ones today. These are a size 2. We will do a bit on hooks later on in the series. And as I mentioned, we're going all the way down to our lead weight at the bottom with the spikes on it. As I say, that's essentially an anchor, holds it in place. So what we actually do then is bait up both of these hooks. Invariably we're going to get baits on them both, get them out in the water and see what fish are about. But bait wise, we're struggling a bit today, if I'm honest. The tides are not the greatest, so what I'm having to do is use some frozen worm. These are frozen lugworms. These come out of my freezer earlier on today. They do freeze really well, and believe me, if you keep them in newspaper, we'll actually do a session on how to keep your bait as well, guys. It's quite essential to do that, to keep it in a good order. What we're going to do is try and get that on, or no, we are going to get it on the hook. My preference is always to go in from the tail end. You can see it's slightly thinner, and it's just got sand in the tail. When these are fresh, that tail is bright yellow. So what we're going to do is hook in at the bottom, and essentially you want to work it round the bend of the hook. Try and keep the sharp at the point inside the worm. As I say, it's personal preference. I like the worm to come out the head end. Hopefully you've seen that, and that will spread up nicely. And that's going to sit on the seabed. And what we want is one of our fish to come along and go, yeah, thank you very much, I'll have that for my dinner. And get themselves hooked, and you're in. Okay. So we'll get the other hook baited up. We'll get that on the line. We're going to get the baited hooks out in the water and see if we can't. So far the rod is out, hasn't had a touch on it at all, but we'll keep going. You know, we've only been here a short while really. The tide's coming in. High tide is around about 3:30, something of that order. So we're fishing it coming in at the moment. I've got 2 people coming down for a lesson as well, just over high water. So hopefully between us we'll catch something. Another essential for your tackle box, guys, is something to wipe your hands on, because believe me, they do get mucky and sticky. So to add it all together, your essentials, obviously your rod, your reel. I would say if you've got a couple of rigs, your scissors, your knife, pair of pliers, and a couple of lead weights. Now the size of the lead weight is going to depend to a large extent on how strong the tide is in the area where you're fishing. Today I can get away with using 4 ounces out there, and it's holding bottom without any problem at all. Sometimes, quite often we'll use 5, quite frequently use 5, and sometimes even step up to 6. And I know in some areas around the country they go higher than that. So the last little bit of kit that I want to talk about today, at the moment, I think it's quite an essential piece of kit, and that's the rod rest on which we keep all the rods when we're actually fishing. This is, as you can probably hopefully see, is a tripod, 3-legged. It'll hold 2 rods, which is always good. You can have 2 rods out if you've got them. It's a nice solid little piece to keep your rod on whilst you're waiting for a bite, and not only that, you can use it when you're baiting up because it'll hold your rod. What you don't want to do is be putting your rod and your reel down on the shingle or on sand or anything like that. You don't want all the mess and the damage that can cause. So let's get that baited rig out in the water and see what we. Okay guys, we're going to get that baited rig out in the water now. What I've actually done is clip it onto one of the rods that one of the people who's coming down to do a bit of a training session with me. We clip it onto one of their rods, so we're going to flick that out. We're going to go reasonably short. It's not going to be a big cast. See if there's anything in quite here. You'll see it's a different rod and reel, obviously, to the one I was using, but essentially it all works the same. So don't forget, it's index finger holding the line, over with that bail arm. You just going to get this out of the water. It's a nice little overhead cast. Right, so that's out in the water. Next thing I want you to do is set the rod onto the rod rest. So let's just go over and have a look and see what happens there. It may sound a simple thing to do, but I'm actually just tightening up that the line. What I want to do is get a little bit of a bend in the top of the rod. I want to get contact. Hopefully you can hear this all right, guys. What I want is the contact with that lead weight and the baits at all times. Just cranking the handle every few seconds here, just to try and get bending the top of the rod. Right. Hopefully you can see there's a little bit of a bend in the top of that rod there. I've got a second rod next to it, as you can see. So we'll just tighten that line up a bit more. You can just see it tightening in toward it. And what that's going to do is give us a direct contact between the rod at this end and the bait at the other end. So any fish that grabs the bait, we should hopefully see a reaction at this end to that rod tip. And as soon as we get one, I'll give you a demo as to what it actually looks like. Bear in mind, this is not fish, this is me. So it literally could be anything from a gentle touch like that to huge and getting bigger. And I absolutely can tell you guys, we've had rods literally going down the beach, we've had to catch them before we lose them. And it just does depend to a large extent on the size of the fish and the species of the fish. But yeah, you do need to be a little bit careful sometimes. If there's a chance of something massive or a lot bigger that's got that sort of strength, you need to be aware of it and be ready. Don't wander away from your rod, because a couple of 100 yards down the road, A, you're not going to be able to see a bite, and B, if it does go like that, you ain't going to be able to react to it. Just stay with your rod, just keep an eye on it. What we'll do is come. There we go, guys. First one of the day, and I think looks to me like a flounder. Yeah, that's a nice little flounder. So, got a nice little flounder.
It's absolutely to a dog.
Which is alright. It's hooks in there, as you can see. So we'll have that hook out in a few moments and get him done. The difference between a flounder and a dab, some people find really difficult to distinguish them. If you look at, I don't know if you can see that line there on camera, guys. Yep. But on a dab, it's much more pronounced. It's a hook. Oh, right. And then if you run your finger up and down it in that line there, and then go back the other way, it's spiny one way, smooth the other. So it's spiny going, smooth going down, spiny coming up, and with a dab it's the other way round. What you do find with these as well is that quite often they got orange spots on them, which they're not as bright as they are with a place. So that's there's quite big differences, but we'll post something about that anyway, guys. Hi guys, I'm back off the beach now, but what I thought I'd do in the light of catching that flounder was just run a short part to the video showing you some of the different species of flatfish. These are the main ones that we would tend to get, certainly across the south coast. Certainly these are the ones we get from the beaches locally. The Place is the first one up on now. This has all been downloaded from britishseafishing.co.uk website. It's easily available on their website, guys, so you can actually get a larger copy of this if this hasn't come out brilliantly. The Place, the orange spots it talks about on now are very, very bright. Usually extremely bright, so you can usually tell the difference between a Place and the flounder, which often has some spots on it as well. The other thing with these is that the skin is completely smooth across the body, so they should be easy enough to spot the difference between those and the flounder, which is the next one up, and that's what we caught on the day. Now, with the flounder, the lateral line, and that's that line running right the way through the middle of the fish, it's got a slight curve to it, as you can see. That's rough. So as you saw on the video, in fact, and so that's the best way to tell the difference between a Place and a flounder, is that the Place is completely smooth all over. The flounder's got that bony ridge running through the middle. So and although they may both have orange spots, the flounders are very much duller. Once you've caught a Place, you'll see the difference. Also get the dab.
Quite often these are confused with the flounder. Probably the best way of determining between the two is that lateral line that runs through the middle again. As you hopefully can pick up on the video, just behind the head, it makes quite a curve, almost like a hook shape, as opposed to the flounder, which is a lot straighter. It's got a curve in it, but it's nothing like this. It's very, very different curve. And that's probably the best way to do them. The other weird thing with the flounder, with the dab rather, is they're actually translucent. You can hold them up to the sky and you can see through them, which is a little bit bizarre at times. Fourth, and certainly not least on our video today, is the Dover Sole. Very, very small mouth on these. A very different shape, as I'm sure you've all noticed straight away. You catch one of these, you will not know. You won't mistake it for any of the other flatfish species. You know, they're a darker colour to start with, a much darker colour. It's got a very small, strange looking hook-shaped mouth, very, very small pinprick eyes, and the whole thing looks very, very different. So I'll leave you to have a look through those guys, and hopefully that will upskill you a little bit on identification between those 4 different species. We're going to close down the video for now on this one. We will have some more to come in the series in the very near future, including looking at rods and reels. What's the best thing for you to get when you're starting out? So with that in mind, guys, I'm going to sign off. So thank you very much. Hit the like and subscribe if you feel the need. We'd certainly appreciate if you do, and we'd certainly appreciate any constructive comments that anybody may have as well. Thanks for viewing.